All right, welcome everybody. My name is Gina Waldhorn. I am the Chief Operating Officer of the Sports Innovation Lab, and you are joining us for the Fan Project, a live chat series. This is our second live chat in the series, so thanks for starting this journey with us. And we really started this series in order to discuss the real challenges and what we believe is the untapped business potential for women's sports, and feature guests and organizations who are partnering with Sports Innovation Lab on the Fan Project to lead and push for change around women's sports. And we wanted to create this environment where you could hear from them and learn about their perspectives, and also chat directly with them and offer up your questions. So as we move through the event, please post your questions for Carrie Lynn and for Megan in the chat, and Megan will be asking those on your behalf today. To recap, if you're not familiar what the Fan Project is, this is an initiative we launched a few weeks ago with the goal of proving the untapped potential and the fan demand for women's sports. We believe that the more visible sports are, the greater their power is to inspire the next generation. We believe gender equality in sport is not just important, but it's good business. And the Fan Project is out to collect fan data, specifically social media data from fans, and to write a report that we can publish that proves this demand. We want to bring this report and punch the industry in the face with it. We'll probably just publish it or email it, but you get the point. Proving to broadcast executives, to investors, to brand sponsors that women's sports is not just the right thing to do. Investing in women's sports isn't just the right thing to do. It's smart business. So if you haven't donated your data yet, make sure that you do. The way you do that is you go to thefanproject.co. You share your social media file. We have instructions on how you go to Facebook or Twitter and you download that file, upload it to our site, completely anonymous. We anonymize and analyze all that information about the things you do and watch and participate in with regards to women's sports. We're going to turn that into a report, which we're going to publish publicly later this summer. And we're going to take it right to the doorstep of the decision makers and those who hold the purse strings to invest in women's sports. And we can't do it without you. So please make sure, if you haven't already, visit thefanproject.co, donate your data, and stay connected with us so you can participate in an awesome live series like this. So moving on, I am really thrilled to introduce first our moderator of the discussion today, Megan Perry. Megan is a sports management veteran with over 10 years industry experience working for the WNBA President's Office, CBS Sports, and today she serves as the Executive Director of Women's Initiatives for Sports Innovation Lab. Prior to joining the Sports Innovation Lab, Megan spent 8 years at the WNBA as part of the basketball operations and player relations team, managing player operations for league events. She's also worked to develop programming to assist current and former players with off-court initiatives and community engagement efforts. And beyond her time at the WNBA, she's remained engaged across the sports landscape. You've probably seen her on TV before, covering women's college basketball on CBS Sports Network. Megan is tireless in her efforts to champion and advance women across sports, media, and technology. She's the newest member of the Sports Innovation Lab team, and we are so lucky to have her on the team and hosting today's discussion. So Megan, welcome. And discussing women's sports and all things equality and data and research is Kerrilyn Curtin, who is currently the Director of Market Research and Planning for the Ladies Professional Golf Association, also known as the LPGA. This is a position she's held since 2017. And in this role, she oversees the market research efforts for the LPGA, working on sponsorship research, television viewership, digital research, cross-platform research, fan research. We really couldn't ask for anybody more perfect to have this discussion with. And prior to working with the LPGA, she worked for innovation cross-platform firm Symphony Advanced Media as their VP of Client Solutions, as well as with NBC Universal as their Director of Research for Telemundo affiliate networks. And before her time in the media industry, she worked at Madison Square Garden for over 10 years within their research team, where she rose from a research analyst to director. So she is all things data and research on fans and sports, and we are just overjoyed and honored to have Kerrilyn Curtin here with us today. So with that, I'm going to exit stage left and hand over the conversation to Megan and Carrie Lynn.
Thanks, Gina. That was quite the introduction, so we really appreciate that and can't wait to welcome you back at the end. And so thank you everyone that has joined the conversation. I'm so excited to have an opportunity to talk with you, Carrie Lynn. We had an opportunity to connect a couple weeks ago around the launch of the FAN project, so I'm so happy to circle back with you. And so I would love to start with, let's tell the participants a little bit more about you and what you've been up to at the LPGA. So can you share a little bit more about your role and how fan research kind of is incorporated to your role at the LPGA?
Yeah, sure. So as Gina mentioned, I've been here since 2017. And when I first came on board, I feel like with everything, it takes some time to kind of do the data dump of what do you have, what are you missing, what do we need, and first year to make some changes. At the LPGA, I am a one-person show, which has its challenges, but at the same time is pretty amazing because you can kind of control everything and keep it under one roof. So I take care of all of the market research and data needs for the entire organization, of which the tour obviously is the biggest, foundation. But we have a ton of other brands as well. Between girls golf, we have our LPGA Foundation, our LPGA amateurs, our LPGA professionals. So I do all the research for all of those brands. I do spend a lot of my time in terms of sponsorship and helping to sell the sponsorships and then recapping the sponsorships, of which fan data is at the forefront of everything, and trying to get that, out to our partners in a way that shows them exactly, what the fan project is trying to show, that it was worth it for them to invest in us and our athletes and our brand, and that they're getting a great value on top of it. So that's, like I said, I do everything from TV viewership to data analytics on the digital side, social side, surveys, anything you can think of.
Awesome. And so we all are very aware across the sports landscape of the power of data specifically, right? And so that's what the FAN project is all about, trying to use data to help inform decision makers to say, hey, we want you to make a data-based decision about your investment in women's sports. And so I'm curious to know, how does the LPGA really prioritize data and fan research? What are some of the ways that you're prioritizing that within your organization?
I think it's definitely come to the forefront. Since I've started, it may have been kind of curtain a little bit per se. There's big education that needed to be done internally to get people comfortable with data, because I think there's a misconception that could be a little scary, and until you understand it and be able to talk about it. And I always present it to my team and everyone I work with, like, my job is to make you all smarter when you go in front of a client. My job is to give you that one piece of nugget that's going to close the deal or upgrade the deal. So it's at the forefront in every one of our presentations. I think, one of our big challenges that I see is taking down the wall of the perception of what a woman's sport is.
Let's talk about it.
I think everyone, well, we don't want that demographic, or, there's not enough viewership, or there's not enough attendance. I can get more eyeballs here. And I think my job is to help prove that wrong. And I think with women's sports, you definitely can. I think I often say we might not win an eyeball game. I may not go up against the NFL and win in impressions against the Super Bowl or the New York Knicks or anything like that. But what I am going to win is the engagement of my fan. And I think, taking that metric and changing it has been a big push for us. Let's get away from playing the impression game and let's go into the engagement game and show that our fans are brand loyal. Our fans, are avid and they use these products, and we're not just a female. We have males we're a heavy male viewer. And I think once people learn that, they're like, wait, what? Really? It's just not all women? It's like, no, you get everybody, young, old, male, female, kids, pester power, you get it all with us. So I think being able to educate people is one of our biggest, in the forefront of trying to get our sponsors to understand.
Got it. Love that. And so as we think about the FAN project and the role that data is playing in the industry, I would love to know kind of what have been some of the key learnings or biggest findings, just from your vantage point, that you think have kind of helped further the conversation and help you and your organization maybe upsell something that previously, maybe the audience was not aware of. How has it really helped those conversations? Can you share something with us?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's really just putting it out on the table and really getting people to recognize that women's sports isn't getting the representation that it has. We've done a study here internally where we found out about 7% of all sports dollars are going to women's sports. Only 7%. Like, that's a lot, and or very small percentage saying that. And so when you start to throw those numbers at the bigger brands and they realize that they can make a difference, I feel like it really moves the needle. And using that, we may talk a lot about just our LPGA fan, but a lot of times we'll talk about women's sports in general and the importance behind it, and that it is about golf, but it's about something bigger. And I think once we get a sponsor to even take a little bite of it, the data we get back from the brand perception that they're now receiving being associated with us is really big. And just on top of them being associated with our players, I mean, our players are accessible. When they start to have that experience, next they're renewing and they're upgrading and they become a title. And it's just getting them in the door. And I feel like once you get your foot in the door with women's sports, you see the power of it and how far it can go. And again, how deep demographically it actually is.
Yeah. Yeah. So we all understand that there's money being left on the table as it relates to women's sports. And that's what the Fan Project is really trying to change, right? We're trying to say, listen, there is this untapped potential there. Like, here is the data. This is where you should put your money. But even outside of that, talk to me a little bit about why having more coverage of women's sports in general. Like, why is that important to you? Why do you think that's important to the LPGA on a global scale, right? So just share outside of the business reasons, why is it important to have more women's coverage?
That's how we get more fans. That's how we get more money. And if we can get more money, it's only going to elevate our athletes, and our athletes deserve it. When you sit and start to look at statistics in terms of just how, and this is the golf world, but just how in general, our athletes are performing versus male counterparts. I mean, statistically, we're better. We hit the ball as far, but we deserve to be there. And I think getting that, when we have network viewership on my end, I have very few of them right now, and the goal is to get on network more. You just for more people to absorb it. And again, I feel like once you have someone watch us once, they come back. And when you're only on cable, on tape plays, or at very bad windows, it's hard to get those eyeballs to even consume anything. And once you get to consume, they're addicted. And I think from our research, something we've learned about women's sports is that a lot of people are watching it and consuming it because they relate to it. And we need to get that out there and get that on a bigger platform so that you can see that what's behind the scenes is something you can relate to better than perhaps a male sport. And I think it's really important, and it's only going to help, again, not just our athletes. I think young girls in general. I remember when I first started working at the LPGA, and my 8-year-old all of a sudden was like, "Wait, mommy, women play golf?" I'm like, "Oh my God, yes!" She had no clue. She only saw daddy's golf, as she likes to refer to it as.
Right. Oh gosh, that's so interesting. Well, and that's something that the Fan Project, through this work, we're hoping to change. I see a question that's great from Kristen. Thank you so much for submitting your question. She wants to ask, and to you, Carrie Lynn, I'll ask this: do you think women consume sports data and content differently than men? And then how so? Maybe what do the numbers say about that? What are you seeing at the LPGA in regards to how women are consuming data and content versus men?
I would say, I think differently, yes. For us internally, something that we've created here at the LPGA is what we consider our full media consumption number, and we're trying to from looking at 125,000 on average view us, because in today's world, male or female, doing on all different platforms, and it's not just the average quarter viewership, minute by minute viewership. So we've created an internal metric called full media consumption, where we can prove out now that it's well over 4 or 5 million people a week consuming our content across the board versus that 125,000 minute by minute viewers. So I think in general, just in terms of consumption of media, it's on social, right? It's all those that are going to be putting up on social that need to start getting put into the metrics and figuring out a way to do that. And we've been trying really hard, and I think we've been pretty successful, and it's starting to move the needle for us, where we can start to see that not just male versus female, but younger versus older are consuming us differently. Content needs to be different in different platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that so excites me, and I know you share the same probably feeling about this, is that we know that with women's sports for a long time, we've had to dig, right? If you want to find a women's basketball game, a college game, perhaps a golf event, a swim event, whatever it might be, you have to dig so deep to find it. And I think something that the Fan Project is going to help us kind of unearth is understanding how are people engaging in non-traditional ways, right? So like we know that there's engagement that happens beyond the linear television, right? Like we know the NWSL proved to the world that, hey, they may not be necessarily on linear television, but their fans are like outpacing everyone in how they're engaging specifically in the digital space. And I think that's something that hopefully with the Fan Project and with the report we are compiling, we're gonna bring some light to because it shouldn't be so hard, one, to get to women's sports, but two, want people to understand that like people are watching, people are engaging, but the traditional metrics is not capturing that information. And so we're trying to change the conversation to say, here, this is actually what you should be focused on. This is how people are engaged, and this is what will move the needle.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we see it, like I said, I mean, if you look at our average viewership, like I said, it's, 100 to 200,000, but once you start bringing in that other content and those other platforms, we're well over, 3.5 million. And to me, it's some of that social stuff and that digital stuff is sometimes even better for sponsors, right? Because people are engaging directly with it. They're commenting, and some of those comments right on that content is extremely valuable. And then there's a conversation. You're watching linear television. There's really not that direct conversation.
Yeah. Perfect. I see another question from some of our participants, and thanks so much, you guys. We want this to be an active and engaged conversation, so keep that chat box lit, if you will. We want to see some more conversation and questions come through. But Jack, a great question from you. Jack wanted to know, like, how does LPGA help golfers promote themselves and their brands, like while promoting the tour as a whole? So I guess really sharing how are people, or if you can provide some insight. What do you do to help athletes kind of promote themselves, and maybe what data and research do you use to help support those efforts?
Yeah, we try to support them as much as we possibly can, especially on the social front. We have obviously some amazing images that they want. So there's definitely a place where they're able to access to all those great images from tournament play. We have a relationship with Open Doors, which is a social platform, which has been extremely helpful, where we can actually help them create their own social content and provide them with the images and the text, and they can approve it or not approve it and send it out via their own social platforms. And I also think really big for us right now is our Drive On campaign. It's really players a platform to share their stories off the course and what drove them to be an LPGA player. And we're seeing really great success with that, not just in terms of feedback and impressions and engagements, but also players, rookies. Haley Moore was our rookie this year, and her story got her on Good Morning America. So a platform for them to get their stories out is key for us, because they are more than just an athlete.
Yeah, for sure. And so something when I think about my own personal journey in sports, and I'm sure many people share some of the same things as far as how it relates to when you see athletes, when you see female athletes performing at a high level, the inspiration, right, that is, right? And obviously the phrase, if you can see it, you can be it. And that is why it's so important for us to continue upping the coverage in as many places as we can. But I'd love to know from you, can you share what's one of your earliest memories of being exposed to women in sports, and kind of how has that shaped your journey? How's that impacted perhaps where you are now?
Well, I have kind of two, I guess. One isn't necessarily, Lisa, who's on the call, will probably know exactly what I'm talking about. She's not a professional athlete. In the research world, I feel like you kind of sit behind the scenes a bit, so you don't get as much hands-on, experience. So for me, it actually was more of a mentor that was in the sports industry for years, has made a name for herself, and it was my mentor, when I worked at Madison Square Garden. So while she wasn't an athlete, for me, it was her moment, and seeing her as a woman executive deal with the sports industry and want to follow in her footsteps and continue on in her legacy. And I always look back on that. So it's not necessarily, for me, it wasn't an athlete per se in the sports data world, which is, I guess kind of weird. But I'll say, in terms of an athlete, I think for me, very eye-opening was actually, when I started at the LPGA, and my first event LPGA, believe it or not, was the Solheim Cup back in 2017. And I was like 1 week on the job, and everyone was like, seriously, this is your first event you're going to experience? Like, you're rotten, because let me tell you, the other events, there's nothing compares. And I remember sitting on the first tee watching that, and this is why I'm here. Like, these women deserve the platform that they're experiencing this weekend, every tournament. And it was the most magical, and it was probably, I've seen some good stuff working at the Garden. That's up there. It was that experience of seeing women, professional golfers with thousands of people behind them, hitting off that first tee and seeing the sponsors and just knowing how cool it actually can be if it has the right platform.
I love that story, and I'm sure there's so many more like that. And that's why with the Fan Project, we have rallied around the hashtag She Did That, because we want people to share stories of their most memorable moment where you've seen a female athlete or a woman in sports do something. And we want you to call it out. We want you to say, she did that, because with more coverage, we can have more she did that moments. And we can continue to drive overall investment in sports, because if the fan demand is there, I'm sure the dollars will follow. We're just doing the best we can to make the business case, right?
Yeah, and it's there, and I could think about so many more. And I think some of it too is like, I remember, watching some of our players come off the 18th green at tournaments and then like run over and hug their little girl that's sitting there. Right. And those are just powerful, moving moments that if they're not out there, no one can connect with. And I think all deserve to be put on a platform.
Sure. And what's amazing about this whole thing, Carrie Lynn, is, and we can go on and on, but fans hold so much of the power in this. And the Fan Project is called that intentionally because we want fans to understand that they have the power to create change, sharing information, letting us know more about what does a profile look like of someone that consumes women's sports, so that we can make that business case moving forward. It is so critical. So if you want to use your voice, if you want to help create change, if you want to see more women in sports, this is one actionable step that fans can take to help elevate the LPGA, to help elevate the WNBA, NWSL, WWE, all of them, like the collective. And that's why we're just so pumped about this. So before we close, we're going to take a couple more questions, but I want to ask one final question to you. What's been one of the moments that you're most proud of in your tenure with the LPGA? Is there something that you would love that you would to share with us, like a highlight from your time working? Is there a project? Is there an event? What are you most proud of from your tenure?
When I first started at the LPGA, my goal was to get back into sports full time. As you guys heard, my career, I went out of sports and went more onto the media network side of things. And company closed, my goal was to get back into sports. My heart's in it. So working at the LPGA, checked off that box. But then as a woman, it checked off too. It was like, this is really cool. I'm going to be part of a women's, direct. I worked for the WNBA and the New York Liberty, but to be direct, right, is a little different. And I very quickly realized that golf is just the foundation of what we do. And I'm really proud to be a part of a lot of the other things outside of watching our athletes every weekend tee it off. And a lot of that stuff is the girls golf program that we have. Girls golf is the junior women is the quickest, fastest growing segment in golf right now. It's grown tremendously over the last 10 years. And to be part of that is amazing. Then to sit at some of our leadership academies with these executive women who are using golf to help move the needle in their business, but to see the confidence of some of these women that come in scared and then leave, talking in front of a room of 150 people. And so I think it's been the most proud, and it has been some of my proudest moments, is actually being in the back of the seat of people, the golf part away from it, and seeing what we're doing in terms of just getting women in the corner offices and young girls with golf clubs in their hands and giving them the confidence, because golf really is a sport that can give people some really great confidence. So to see that and be part of that has been absolutely amazing, and something I didn't realize I was ever going to be a part of, because I thought I was going to help women play golf.
Yeah, no, it's great. We're shifting the whole landscape. We don't realize just the power of sports, which is a whole nother virtual event in itself. But really what we're doing is moving the entire needle for the whole industry. One more question. We're gonna take a question from Peter. Thanks, Peter, for your question. It says, Carrie Lynn, what percentage of LPGA viewership is male? Would love to know a little bit more about that. And I think that I'll just say, just to kind of piggyback on that question, we understand at the Sports Innovation Lab this concept of a fluid fan, understanding that there are fans that are not just necessarily like avid, we'll say golf fan, maybe they're not all female. There are fans that are fluid, that they may engage more casually. They might be a young man, they might be a senior gentleman, that are finding different ways to maybe click on something, to like a photo, to attend an event. And we're trying to capture that entire engagement. So Peter's question really is about a sliver of that. Like, what are you seeing from a viewership standpoint as far as how male fans are engaging with the LPGA?
So that is one of my biggest things that kind of keeps me up. And, if you syndicated data, what, the average, agency or brand has access to, they're going to see a male heavy fan, a male heavy fan, from Nielsen data and things of the like. Now you go to one of our golf courses and go to a tournament. Oh my gosh, you're seeing the complete opposite. You're seeing women, of all ages. You're seeing dads with daughters. You're seeing boys. You're seeing everyone. And I think that's one of my, biggest goals in my position is to get that out there. And which is why, again, we've gone to the consumption number, because we want to show that full picture. We don't want to just talk about our older male viewer, which is great, right? They have the extra money and they're buying things, but we're more than that. But again, viewership wise, we are older, although we have seen a shift in the last 2 years. We've seen a younger demographic, thing, but you wonder why that is. A lot of them are cutting the cord. So I think we're still missing some of them. They don't have Golf Channel, some of that younger demographic. So it's been tricky. And I think that's one of my biggest goals and has been here, is to kind of get that thought out of everyone's head that yes, on paper we might be male heavy, but that's not what you're getting when you're buying us. You're getting much, much more. And the fluid fan, that's what you're getting. You're getting all of us. And working with the Fan Project is, what I'm excited about, to help me tell that story, because I think it's key in women. I think it's a big misconception. We've also seen a growth in co-viewing with the LPGA as well. Really interesting to me, that family-friendly atmosphere. We've done some Nielsen. We actually are seeing an uptick in that as well. So we're trying to dig a little bit on that to kind of understand what that means for us.
Sure.
How that can play into sponsorships and gaining more fans and marketing. So although we might be male heavy, we are seeing slight shifts in terms of a younger and then a co-viewing happening.
Got it. Well, we wish we had more time to be able to field more questions, but we want to tell Carrie Lynn, we want to say thank you so much for the time you shared with us. We want to continue to support you. We're cheering you on. We're excited about your participation in the Fan Project, and we want to encourage others to get on board because this is important work, and we can't do it without incredible supporters and partners like you and the LPGA. So thank you so much, Carrie Lynn.
And thank you, Megan.
So I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so turning it back to Gina. Gina, please close us out.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us today, and Carrie Lynn and Megan for hosting a fantastic conversation. Next week, we are actually doing a special version of our series with Sportico. It's our Ask Me Anything series dedicated to the Fan Project, where we will have the SVP and Chief Operating Officer, Lawrence Epstein from UFC. So getting a total different perspective in what sometimes people think is a very male-dominated sport, MMA. But he's here to talk about the impact that women's sports and integrating female athletes into their portfolio has had on their business, and what they're doing and how they're dedicating their time and resources and data and efforts to furthering the progress of women's sports. So link is in the chat. Sign up. We'll make sure to keep you guys reminded about when our next live chat series with Megan and our partners are, and check out the LPGA, Girls Who Golf, everything Carrie Lynn is working on. It's incredible stuff. And don't forget to donate your data. So thanks, guys.
Yes. Thank you.
Have a great rest of the week.